Today, I'm delighted to introduce you to a songwriter and record producer who has been in the music industry for 55 years, Geoff Stevens. Geoff has been jointly responsible for a huge number of hit records, including these.
Tell me when you feel a little blue. So you finally name the day when wedding bells will chime.
Finchley Central is 2 and 6pence from Golders Green on the Northern Line. Peekaboo, I do love you. You're the one girl for me.
I know all there is to know about the crying game. I can't make it if you leave me. I'm sorry, Suzanne, believe me, I was wrong, and I knew I was all alone. So won't you please play a song, a sentimental song for my sentimental friend over there. Goodbye, Sam. Hello, Samantha. Goodbye, Sam. Hello, Samantha. Daughter of darkness. Oh, you leave me alone forever. You devil daughter.
A very warm welcome from Perth in Western Australia, Geoff, and sincere thanks for taking some of your valuable time today to share some of your experiences with us.
Oh, that's my pleasure entirely, Mike. Thanks. It's lovely to be here, and thanks for asking me on.
I understand that your career actually started in the amateur theatre when you wrote songs and sketches for musical reviews presented by your own company, For Arts Society, while working as a schoolteacher, air traffic controller and a silk screen printer. Quite a variety. Not all at the same time, I hope. Please tell us a little of those early days, Geoff.
Well, I had a very good friend from my school days who was into theatrical writing in quite a big way. And I think he inspired me in the sense that he played me some of the material he'd written, and I thought, yeah, I think I could do that. So we actually started writing together, and then we carried on writing independently and then together again. And in the end, we decided to form this small society. And it was small. It just had my wife Pam and her sister Angela and a few friends in it. And we played to local audiences in our hometown.
Brilliant.
I didn't perform, I might add. I just wrote songs and sketches and was stage manager stroke director, general dog's body, in other words. And looking back, I think it did lay the groundwork for the pop song career that followed, because I discovered that I could write songs even though I had no musical training. I was a bit dubious at first, but overcame that, fortunately. Yes, you're quite right about the different number of jobs I had. But they all had one common theme, which was that they all allowed me enough free time to carry on writing my songs, getting them sent out to music publishers and record companies, even going up to Denmark Street and seeing people. So that was quite a useful way of working. And apart from my songwriting, I also had a spell writing sketches for BBC Radio. And I think that came about through having experienced writing sketches for the For Arts Society, our little dramatic society.
Some of your sketches for BBC Radio were used in their Monday Night at Home programme. What sort of programme was this? And did the writing of these sketches for the programme lead directly to the writing of lyrics for songs?
The accent, as I recall, was heavily on satire, and mostly consisted of short, maybe 3-minute sketches. It was chaired by a chap called Basil Boothroyd, who was then editor of Punch, the famous satirical magazine. That's how the programme had this satirical edge to it. I don't think writing these sketches influenced my lyrics that much. I started to learn how to write pop lyrics once I got a job as a song plugger with a music publisher in Tin Pan Alley. That was a chap called Freddie Poser. And Freddie was very closely associated with Johnny Worth, who was and still is a fantastic songwriter. One of my idols, actually, when I was learning my trade, him and Lionel Bart.
Great that you mentioned Johnny Worth, Geoff, who I had the great pleasure of meeting and interviewing during a recent trip to the UK. Now, I know a number of your songs were co-written by yourself and Les Reed, who has also been an interview guest of mine. How did you actually meet Les?
Well, funnily enough, that was also arranged by Freddie Poser. Freddie signed me up to a publishing deal, and he thought some of my lyrics were quite good. I think he saw the beginnings of a good partnership with Les, who was already a first-class all-round musician, great pianist, arranger, and a very good songwriter. So we met and hit it off, both personally and subsequently professionally.
Your first hit, also co-written with Les Reed and recorded by the Applejacks, was Tell Me When. Could you tell us a little of the history of how this song came to be?
Well, Mike, in those days, I had a big thing about the right song title. Song titles were very important because they provided, they were the seed from which you could grow a song. In fact, talking of Johnny Worth, he wrote those kind of songs. For example, he wrote What Do You Want? He even wrote a song called Get Lost. It was actually Get Lost, but Get Lost in My Arms. What I'm saying is he found these everyday phrases and colloquialisms and used them as song titles. Anyway, Tell Me When came about that way. You know when you pour someone a drink and add something else to it? For example, you might pour someone a whiskey and add some soda, and you say, tell me when, meaning tell me when to stop adding the soda.
Yes.
So that's how that little phrase came about in my mind. And Les and I met up one day for a writing session. Les played me a musical phrase, and this title popped up, and it just sat there very neatly onto the musical phrase that Les had written. So that's how the song began, and once we started, things started to move smoothly along, and we had it all done in quite a short time.
Let's listen to that top 10 hit from the Applejacks, Tell Me When.
Tell me when you feel a little blue. Tell me then I'll see what I can do. Just say the word and I'll be there. Anywhere with lots of love to share. So
Tell Me When from the Applejacks, co-written by our special guest today, Geoff Stevens. Your next hit has always been a particular favourite of mine, The Crying Game, recorded in 1964 by Dave Berry. The song has been covered by a great number of artists, of course, but was the song originally written especially for Dave?
No, it wasn't really, Mike. It was one of those instances where the song title was of great importance, and I was having a writing session myself one day and trying to dream up titles, and this title came into my head. And as soon as it did, I felt pretty excited because I thought that was a very good title. So I finished the song off, did the demo. We got the recording by Dave Berry this way. At lunchtime in Denmark Street, Tin Pan Alley in other words, we all used to go to the local pub, songwriters, publishers, song pluggers, record company men, and amongst them was Mike Smith, who was an A&R man for Decca. And Mike famously, or infamously, turned down the Beatles. Well, that's a bit unfair to Mike, actually. What happened was this. His boss, Dick Rowe, had told Mike that he could only sign one of two groups. Mike wanted to sign the Beatles, and he wanted to sign Brian Poole and the Tremolos. Dick gave him that option. Mike chose Brian Poole and the Tremolos because they lived near him in Barking. So that's how that happened. Anyway, back to the Crying Game. I gave a demo of the song to Mike one day at the pub, and a few weeks later we met up again, and he told me how much his wife loved the song. He didn't say he liked it, but the next thing I knew, I'd heard he'd recorded it with Dave Berry, and the rest is history. I have to thank guitarist Big Jim Sullivan, who produced that lovely sound with his famous wah-wah pedal, which I'm sure helped to make the record a hit.
As I mentioned, the song has always been a personal favourite, so let's hear this number 5 hit single, The Crying Game.
I know all there is to know about the crying game. I've had my share of the crying game. About
Dave Berry and the Crying Game. Let's move on now to a group that became a very popular band that, when its first hit single came out, technically didn't exist. I refer, of course, to the New Vaudeville Band. Please tell us a little of the history of how the band came about, Geoff.
Yes, that is it's quite a hair-raising story, actually, I must confess. One day I got a call from a friend of mine, Peter Eden, who lived near me in Westcliff-on-Sea. He'd seen this folk singer at a venue in Westcliff. He thought he was very, very good, and was I interested in hearing him? So I said yes, and arranged to see him at his next gig. Cutting a very, very long story short, Peter and I signed Donovan up under management and launched his very successful career. We also produced his first records, Catch the Wind, Universal Soldier, and his first album, which was What's Been Did and What's Been Hid, and his second album as well, which was Fairy Tale. Unfortunately, for whatever reason, and he never did explain why, Donovan wanted to sign up to another management, and I'm afraid it all ended up with us taking him to court, settling out of court, and thus there was the parting of the ways. Unfortunate, but these things happen, I'm afraid. During the year or so I was co-managing Donovan, I'd written very little in the way of new material, so I tried to get my act together, got back to writing, and came up with 5 or 6 new songs. I played these songs to Peter to get his feedback, and I almost didn't play him Winchester because I thought, although it got me quite G'd up when I was writing it, I thought it was just too crazy to be commercial. Anyway, I did play it to him, and he insisted I make a demo of it. And I only made one change to the lyric I'd written, and that was changing the title from Westminster Cathedral to Winchester Cathedral. Having made the demo with my friend John Carter from the Ivy League on vocal, and in fact John did all my demos, I didn't sing anything there at all. And I punted it round all the A&R men I knew, and everyone liked it and wanted to record it. But none of them could offer me a major artist. It's hardly surprising, really. I mean, you couldn't imagine Tom Jones singing the lyrics of Winchester Cathedral. Anyway, on the strength of the reaction I was getting, I decided to make a recording myself with me singing it. I booked top arranger Kenny Woodman, hired session musicians, booked the studio, put my voice on. I listened to it a few times and then decided no, it was no good. So I got John Carter, who did the demo, back to do the job instead, and I'm glad I did that. I then leased the record to Fontana Records, calling it Winchester Cathedral by the New Vaudeville Band. And of course, there was no such band. And a few weeks after the release, the record charted, and I got a phone call from the producer of Top of the Pops, Johnny Stewart. He wanted the New Vaudeville Band to appear the following week. Well, Top of the Pops was, and still is, I think, a major plug, you know, and I didn't dare lose the opportunity of a great plug like this, so I agreed. And that's when I really started to worry, because there was no band. Anyway, my friend Peter Eden came to the rescue. He knew a lot of musicians in the Westcliff area, and when I told him my problem, he soon assembled a motley crew of musos from other bands, mainly, and we were on our way. And I did manage to find a replacement lead vocalist for John Carter, because John Carter didn't want a tour, and that vocalist was Alan Klein. later to be named Tristram, 7th Earl of Cricklewood. After Winchester charted in the UK, it went on to be a worldwide #1.
And here is that very first song from the new vaudeville band that still remains very, very popular, Winchester Cathedral, that was a top 10 hit in the UK and was at the very top of the charts here in Perth for 2 weeks in early 1967.
Winchester Cathedral, you're bringing me down. You stood and you watched as my baby left town. You could have done something, but you didn't try. You didn't do nothing. You let her walk by. Now everyone knows just how much I needed that girl. She wouldn't have gone far away if only you'd started ringing your bell. Winchester Cathedral, you're bringing me down. You stood and you watched as my baby left town. Oh, for the autumn, oh, for the autumn, oh, for the autumn.